Hi everybody, welcome back to the Retro Ghetto, and I want to start this episode by sharing this image with you all. This was taken approximately 6 years ago when I was first surprised with my Nintendo Switch, and my face says it all. Very rarely as you get older do things live up to the hype, and I remember the hype for this console coming out was crazy. I remember that initial Nintendo advert where people were playing Skyrim on the bus and they were picking up the console and taking it for a walk, and I remember being so blown away by the ingenuity of Nintendo, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on one. And as I say, very rarely do things live up to that hype. In the Nintendo Switch's case, it certainly did. If it wasn't for nostalgia, I think Nintendo Switch would probably be my favourite console of all time. Not only for the fantastic library of games that we've had over the 6 years, full of fantastic AAA Nintendo IPs, bringing back retro classics, and what has fast become my favourite genre of video games, my favourite oxymoron, modern retro style games. And also 6 years into the console's lifespan, with prices finally starting to reduce on the games, it's now an amazing system to collect for. It doesn't take up much room on the shelf with the spines being so thin, and that beautiful red glow that you get when you put all these games together. For someone like myself that takes pride in his games room and his shelves, you really cannot beat the Nintendo Switch for aesthetically pleasing shelf space. What I'm going to do today is take a look at my most recent additions for the console. It's been roughly 5 months since I did one of these videos. There's a lot of fantastic games that I want to recommend to you guys, some hidden gems in here as well that I've recently picked up. And once I've gone through my more recent pickups, we're also going to take an overview of my entire Nintendo Switch collection. So 6 years into the console's life, this is very much my love letter to the Nintendo Switch, and I'm going to be showing you guys every single Switch game that I own on this video. Okay, so the first games that I want to show are the Psikyo Shooting Stars collection, both Alpha and Brava. I was fortunate enough to get the big box versions of these. One of these was a successful CEX lottery, and the second one I managed to pick up box only from Vinted of all places, but I will be adding the game cart to it very, very shortly, so keep an eye out on the vlogs for that one coming. But yeah, just two fantastic libraries of games here. I've become a huge fan of shmups over recent years, and I had to have these in my collection. I'm not often one for big boxes, I just don't have the room, but I had to make an exception for both the Psikyo Alpha and Brava entries. These collections include Strikers 1945, 2, 3, Dragon Blaze, Soul Divide, Zero Gunner 2, Gunbird, Gunbird 2, Gunbarrich, Tengai, Samurai Aces, and one in Japanese that I can't read. But I can guarantee you it's a very good game, as the rest of them are on these collections. Okay, so the rest of the pile that I have sitting here is in no real order. I just grabbed them off my shelf, probably in reverse alphabetical order by the looks of it. And the first game here is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. What is there left to say about this game at this point, right? I'm sure there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of videos on YouTube talking about this game. I genuinely believe it's one of the greatest video games ever made. The depth and everything in this game, I could honestly just make a video talking about my experiences with this game. I think I summed it up perfectly from my experience on a recent vlog where I said it was almost too much, it was almost daunting for me. As a busy man with a growing family and an ever-increasing backlog of video games, I couldn't put the 300+ hours into this game that it probably deserves. There's so much to explore. I finished the storyline in and around 120 hours, and I almost felt guilty because there was so much of the game still left to play. I wish I had found this as a 13-year-old entering the school summer holidays and I had nothing to do but sit in my pants for 6 weeks, eat cereals and play this game, because you'd have a fantastic summer doing that. But yeah, genuinely one of the best video games ever made in my opinion. I'm just not at a time in my life where I could fully explore and appreciate it, but I had a fantastic time with it nonetheless. Next up on the list, we've got two. I'm going to bundle these together. We've got Raiden 4 and Raiden 3, the Mikado Maniacs remix, I believe they're called. It's quite a tongue twister. Basically, these are re-releases of the classic shmups. They've been somewhat remastered, and I think more so the audio has been remixed. I think there's a very famous Japanese composers have got involved, and they've sort of custom-made music to the tempo and to the theme of the games. And from what I understand, it all ties together very seamlessly, and it becomes an even more immersive experience as a result of that. Can't speak too much on these ones. They are on my backlog of shmups to play, but I haven't really put too much time into either of them. This one is actually still sealed, but I will be getting around to it because Raiden, as I say, is just one of those games that I hear a lot of positive things about, but I've never really put much time into any of the releases in the franchise, and I'll be changing that very soon with these pair. Next up, and wow, Okay, viewers of the vlogs will know I've had a somewhat checkered history with this game. Metroid Prime Remastered.
Oh, come on. It's impossible. What am I doing? If you sat there wondering why I'm playing the computer like your nan does at Christmas. Is anyone else playing Metroid Prime? I'm about to quit. I'm about to rage quit.
There's a bit where you have to get this ball up this half pipe, right? And I've just unlocked this boost. And you have to kind of Tony Hawk it up this thing. I mean, obviously I'm not doing a very good job with one hand. But I swear it's impossible. I'm about to give up on this game. I'm actually not doing too bad with one hand. Go on. Maybe this is the technique. Go on, lad. Ah! Nah, flopped it. Honestly,
Can't keep doing this. I've been trying this for about an hour. I've even asked Google. It's not helped me. I might be done with this game.
So a few years ago, I tried to play Metroid Prime on the GameCube. Did a few hours, but it really needed a remaster, right? Those sort of old first-person games on those systems are very dated. They're very difficult to get a grips with nowadays when you're used to playing more modern first-person games. So I was full of anticipation when I got this game. I got it pretty close to release because shout out to Nintendo for a shock drop and to put it at the right pricing point of £30. I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. I bought it, I played it, I was enjoying it, and eventually I don't know, man. I put too many hours into it and got nowhere. I didn't want to play this game by reading a guide or watching a YouTube playthrough and then mimicking that, and I got to that point where it felt like that's what I was doing. I was spending so much time backtracking, and I know that's the point of these games, but as I've already alluded to with Zelda, I don't have enough time in my life anymore, and there's so many games I want to play that I can't spend evenings playing this game and not getting anywhere. And that's what happened. I think I had 2 or 3 very rare valuable evenings where I had some time to play video games. This was my game of choice, and I'd put like 3 or 4 hours in, and I'd go to bed and think to myself, I've got nowhere. And again, if you've got the time at a different time of life, I might appreciate sort of scouring every inch of this map and enjoying the game for what it's supposed to be, but it was just maybe right game, wrong time for me. Not slandering the game at all. If you like this kind of thing, it's very well done. Some of the best graphics you'll see on the Nintendo Switch, but yeah, I ended up bowing out. I didn't finish this one. I just did not have it in me to put any more wasted hours getting nowhere with this game. And from a game that I put a lot of hours into and didn't get anywhere to a game that I've recently started playing and really enjoying, and that is Kaze and the Wild Masks. I've got to give a shout out to Gibbo over at Gib84 Gaming. Go and check his YouTube out. He was the first person that highlighted this to me. I also saw a review on Switch Up, I believe, and it looks like everything I enjoy in video games. Very much a throwback to the old school platformers of days gone by, and since I've started playing this, the amount of similarities between this and Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo, there's so many, right? It's almost like a love letter to that game, like a more updated version of it. What I'm really enjoying about this game is it's very pick up and play. The levels are really short. It's perfect for the Nintendo Switch. If you want to play an hour or so before bed, I was even playing it in a car journey the other day. Just going through these really short levels, and the pacing's fantastic. Like, similar to Donkey Kong Country, certain enemies you can sort of bounce off, and if you get the timing right, you'll just continue to bounce, and you can go through these levels very quickly. And the other thing I would like to say about this game is you can sort of put as much time into it as you want or don't want. You can fly through levels like I'm currently doing and get through them in a minute and a half. It does get more difficult as time goes on, by the way. Or you can sort of try and find every single collectible that this game has to offer. So every single level will have X amount of coins it wants you to get, X amount of secrets it wants you to get, and it's one of them games that's got a lot of replayability. As I say, you can really put as much time into it as you want or don't want, but I'm really enjoying this thus far. I think it's going to be a game that I'm going to keep playing now until completion, and if you haven't already, I highly recommend Kaze and the Wild Masks. It's not a very expensive game, but it's a very good time. Okay, so next up is a game that I've not had as much time to put into it as I would have liked, but it has a very special place in my heart, and that is Guns N' Runs. The reason this game has such a special place in my heart is that Pixel Heart sent me this, and it's the first video game I was ever sent by a distributor of games, and it means a lot. It's still to this day when companies send me games to look at and to share my experiences of with you guys. It's almost like a pinch myself moment, right? It's just as somebody that started a channel because I love video games and I love collecting them, to then be sent them directly by companies that equally watch my channel is somewhat mind-blowing. It's very humbling, and yeah, as I say, this was the first game I've ever sent by a company, so I've got to give a big shout out to Pixel Heart, a company that I've spent money with in years gone by. In particular, the 2 Nintendo Wii U releases that they put out that are now commanding a very high price, and yeah, just one of them games that will always have a place in my heart. I'm hoping to put a bit more time into it one day. This one's actually numbered. This is of 2,000 copies, so yeah, that's Guns N' Runs by Pixel Heart. Right, okay, this next one is a very recent addition. I haven't had time to play it yet, but it's come highly recommended. It's one of them games that just keeps popping up in my comment section. People keep telling me I need to play it, and that is Final Vendetta. From what I understand, it's very much a beat 'em up, very much in the vein of Streets of Rage, something like that. It's got everything that you want in terms of a modern, retro, pixelated art style, and yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of beat 'em ups, I'll be honest. I think they're better played multiplayer. Sometimes I can get a little bit bored of them. I find them a little bit samey. I know some people love them, but this does look like one I think I'll have a good time with. I'm intrigued to see what this one plays like, and another very cheap release, Final Vendetta.
Final Vendetta!
Right, okay, this next one is high on my list of games to play. The backlog is long, this is right at the front. As soon as I've finished with Twin Hawk, that I'm currently trying to play through on the Mega Drive, I am going to start playing Drainus. I've heard so many good things about this game. Shout out to Champion2D Rob. He did like a little mini review on this on one of his recent pickups. I'll link the video in the description below. Massive respect as well to Champion2D for recently hitting 1,000 subscribers. But yeah, again, this was one of them games that's always going to be in my heart, right? The people at Strictly Limited Games, honestly, such a fantastic company in my experience to work with. They watched the channel, they saw it was my birthday recently on a vlog, and they wanted to send me a birthday present, and they didn't just send me this game. RIP the Switch collection. They actually sent me the collector's copy, and this is fantastic. There's so much in here, and yeah, similarly to like I said with Guns N' Runs, when companies send me games, it's still one of them things that just really means a lot to me, and this game will always have a place in my heart, as Guns N' Runs did. And yeah, I can't thank the good people over at Strictly Limited enough. This game looks fantastic. I can't wait to get into it. From what I understand, you kind of have the ability to drain the opponent's weapons, hence the name Drainus, and then I think you can utilize that against them. So almost similar maybe to gimmicks that you'll find in games such as Ikaruga, but with a slightly different spin. I know there's a lot of upgrading you can do to your ships, and yeah, it's just one of them that I really can't wait to get my teeth into. I'm hoping to get Twin Hawk finished sooner rather than later. This is very much my motivation to complete that game, because I always like to have one shmup on the go at a time, and this is next on my list. Right, okay, well, it seems to be a bit of a theme here, right, in terms of my affection for these games. Another one that's got a place in my heart, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I never purchased this because I own it on the Wii U. It's one of them games that I always wanted on the Switch, because at this point, right, if you're going to get into a game, you might as well get into it on the Switch, especially like a pick up and play sort of platformer, because obviously you've got the accessibility, you can move around with it, and I'll be honest, I rarely blow the dust off my Wii U these days. So this was one that was sent to me with a plethora of other games by a reviewer of the channel. Shout out to you, you know who you are. Just one of them games I've always intended to get to and play through. I did try and play it on the Nintendo Wii U a while back. I found it quite difficult. I did a couple of levels and just never went back to it. But I think now having it on the Switch and with that accessibility, it's going to give me that impetus to pick this up one day in the future and try and play through this one. Right, okay, this next one came as a result of Marcus over at Dad and Lads Gaming. He sort of sent me this. He had it digitally, and I saw that the release was coming out. He basically persuaded me to buy it and then didn't even buy it himself. So, nice one. Cheers for that, Marcus. And that is Crisis Wing. I'm so glad I did take his advice, though. This is the Elite Edition, and this, again, is numbered of 4080. Random number, right? I love this. I love everything about it. I love that it comes with a full colour manual. I love that it's like a foil-backed cover. The game itself is visually so impressive. It's one of them games you put it on, it's like, wow. It looks so nice. It's almost like a modern adaptation or a love letter to Truxton in many ways. When you look at some of the power-ups, they were taken straight from the Truxton textbook. I find this game very difficult. Very difficult. It's one of them games I think you've got continues. So as you're playing through it, you'll die, you can keep going on. And I don't want to finish the game like that. I don't want to die 40 times and then get to the end, right? I want to get good at it and try and get as far as I can on one credit. It's very difficult though. It's definitely one that I'm going to be playing again in the future. I just didn't get too far. I put it down and I haven't picked it up since. Right, this next game is very rare for me for two different reasons. It's rare because I bought it brand new on day of release from the shop. And it's rare for me because previously I did that cardinal sin of collectors. I bought it digitally, and that is Celeste. The reason I picked up this game digitally about 3 years ago was that the limited run release of this had become so expensive, like over £100, that I just couldn't justify it. But I really wanted to play it, and I'm glad I did. It was on a Switch sale, it was really cheap, I loved this game. I died over 1,000 times from memory. It tells you at the end of the game how many times you died. Over 1,000 deaths, but I enjoyed every minute of it. I loved finishing this game. And this, for me, was just unfinished business. This and Blazing Chrome, that you'll see when I go through my entire Switch collection at the end of this video, were two games that I downloaded digitally, absolutely fell in love with, but couldn't justify buying physically given the price from their limited run release. Both games have since had a wider physical release. I now own them both, and it feels like I finally have a physical adaptation of a video game that I love and enjoyed playing through, and for me that's what collecting's all about. So if you haven't played Celeste, highly recommend it. It was quite a relatively budget release. It's like £25–30 now, so definitely pick this one up if you can. And speaking of strictly limited games, before I'd had any communication with them, I purchased this from them, and that is Cannon Dancer. Another one that came highly recommended by Champion 2D Rob. I also think Sega Zombie picked this one up and kind of jogged my memory and forced my hand to spend more money on video games. This, to my knowledge, is like a spiritual successor to the Strider games. You'll be seeing the footage on screen now. It's one of them that just looks like... It just reminds me of one of them games that, even though I missed out on the arcade generation, there's still sort of like the odd arcade you would find when you went on holiday, right? Or in the odd random shop, and it just sort of looks like that visually to me. A game that I'm excited to get into, that's Cannon Dancer. Right, okay, this next one is another one that came highly recommended. Another one that just kept popping up in my comment section. People kept making me aware of it, saying how addicted they were to it, because from my understanding it's very, very addictive, which is dangerous to have on your Nintendo Switch. There's a reason I don't have Football Manager on my Nintendo Switch, right? I don't have enough hours to commit to it. And that is Arcade Paradise. So this is like an arcade sim management game. You basically start with a laundrette, you add more and more arcade machines as you play through it. And not only that, but you can actually play the arcade machines, and you unlock more arcades and different achievements by playing the machines that you put in what was a laundromat and is now an arcade. I fully expect to enjoy this one. I fully expect to become somewhat immersed and addicted to it. I'm just choosing my time wisely as to when I start playing it, but another game that's not particularly expensive and worth picking up if you see it. Right, okay, this next one I found in CEX. It was so cheap, it was like 15 quid. I felt like I had to buy it, and that is Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX. This is what Nintendo Switch does so well, right? Takes an old franchise, gives it a new lease of life, shows it to a younger audience, makes it more accessible, and yeah, Alex Kidd, right? You can't go wrong. I have vivid memories of borrowing my neighbour's Master System. I never had a Master System growing up, but I borrowed my neighbour's. And I remember just like having my tiny mind blown as a child that you didn't have to put a game cartridge in it. Alex Kidd was already built in. I found that fascinating. And I remember the summer that I borrowed it from my neighbours, playing Alex Kidd. They also copied me the Spice Girls album on cassette tape. Random combination, but I remember Spice Girls cassette tape, Alex Kidd in the Master System, and this is definitely going to bring back some of those memories. Also, like, for a cheap release, to come with things like a keyring and other accessories, a nice, like, reversible Master System cover. Yeah, I don't think you can go too far wrong for what was like £15 at CEX with Alex Kidd. Okay, and the last one that I've added recently is Aces of the Luftwaffe. Now this is one of them games that just caught my eye because it's a shmup, because it's cheap, and I just love the art style. This is, I believe, almost as if Nazi Germany was set in the future as opposed to the past, I believe. So I think they've been very sort of like interesting artwork on this one. What they've been able to do with combining history with science fiction of the future, amalgamating the two together. It just looks really interesting. You'll be seeing the footage on screen now. I've heard good things about it. I've heard it gets difficult towards the end, but I suppose I need to start it to find out for myself. But again, very, very cheap, like tenner or something like that. Aces of the Luftwaffe. And that is all my Nintendo Switch editions since the last update that we did. What I'm going to do now is take a look at every other Nintendo Switch game that I've currently got in my library. Okay, so I've now moved over to my Super Nintendo table and we're going to go through every single Nintendo Switch game that I own. And we're going to start with the big box games that I own. First one here, Lonely Mountains Downhill. I'm a huge advocate of this game. I've spoken about this game many times before on my channel. Just one of them games that's so fun. You're basically just trying to get down a mountain as fast as you can. You will crash thousands of times. But every time I play it, I have a lot of fun with this one. Definitely recommend picking this one up. It's from Super Rare Games, but it is stocked at CEX. Next one is Sifu. So this is a very difficult game. It's a beat 'em up, but it's almost, I don't want to go as far as say it's a Souls beat 'em up, but you will have to block, you will have to learn different move sets. You can't just sort of run your way through this one button bashing. I've only put a couple of hours into it. I did not get very far at all. Right, Shantae Genie Hero. This is the Ultimate Day 1 edition that I have here. I played this one for a little bit. I've never really got too involved with the Shantae series. I'll be honest, I wasn't overly blown away by this one. There's lots of different Shantae games in the series. A lot of them play very differently. I didn't give it enough time. It's one that I will revisit, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend I loved it when I didn't. Guilty Gear, one that I picked up really early on in the Switch's life cycle because it was so cheap. This big box version with the art book and everything was like reduced to £15 in a game sale. That's why I picked it up. It's a 2D one-on-one fighter. Can't tell you much more about it because I haven't given it much time. Flashback 25th anniversary, again just sort of one of the early adaptations for the Nintendo Switch that was a 16-bit game which they then brought to the Nintendo Switch. This comes with a steelbook and things like that. And Axiom Verge, I loved this game. This was another one that was early on in the Switch's life cycle that was very cheap. And at the point when Switch first came out, there was not many cheap video games for it at all. This was a real cheap release, so I picked it up and I'm glad I did. I knew nothing about it. It's very much a Metroidvania. The whole thing was made by one person. It's got sort of Super Metroid vibes about it. Played through it, thoroughly enjoyed it, loved the music, loved everything about it. I need to play the second one. Okay, and now we're into my games proper. I think these are in alphabetical order. First one, Agelos, however you want to pronounce it. Very much like almost like an 8-bit art style. Very difficult. It gets really hard towards the end. I did play through it. I was quite proud that I was able to finish it. Highly recommend this, especially if you like those old sort of Alex Kidd and a lot of those early releases. Almost a platformer, but with some, you know, small RPG elements to it. Definitely recommend Agelos. Andro Dunos 2, I've spoken about this game so many times on the channel. I'm such a big fan of this. People often say to me, how do I get into shmups? What's entry level? I'd say this, pick this one up. It's not easy, it was a challenge to get it finished. The art style, the music, oh my days, the music. I could listen to this music on repeat. This is one of very few games in my whole collection that I will finish and replay. I'm definitely going to replay this one day. I had such a great time with this one. Okay, next up, Blasphemous. Speaking of Souls-like games, again, another one that's very difficult. I put quite a bit into this one, but not enough to really give you a full review. I only put a couple of hours into it. Very macabre, nice art style, very difficult. We'll revisit that one down the line. Blazing Chrome, this is one that you heard me speak about on this video. Absolutely love this. It's sort of like a modern adaptation of Contra. Yeah, it's just... fantastic. I don't really know what to say about it. If you haven't played this, play it. If you can't find the cheap Pixel physical of it, pick it up on the Nintendo eShop. It's always on sale. I don't know anybody that's played this and doesn't love it. This I actually bought in New York, so you'll see it was $34. There was a shop in New York that sold limited run games. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, I believe it was like an 8-bit game. I think this was like the precursor to Symphony of the Night, not Symphony of the Night. Ritual of the Night was it called? This kind of came out to fill that gap. Haven't played it, heard good things about it. Civilization, it went over my head. I'll be honest, I picked this up for a while. It became an expensive game, went up in value. I think they must have re-released it or put some more out. I tried to play it, I just did not have the patience to learn all the mechanics. It's a very in-depth game. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, I'll be honest, I prefer the originals. I think this is really hard. The way that they remastered it, it makes it more difficult than it used to be. Unless I've got worse at gaming since I was a child. Yeah, I finished the first game on here, but it was certainly a lot more of a challenge than I remember it to be. Cotton Reboot, just a shmup. Picked this one recently from CEX, haven't got around to playing it yet. Cuphead, one of my favourite games of all time. Completed it at the start of this year. Little man bought it me for Christmas. I love it. I love everything about it. Another one that I'm very proud to have finished. Very difficult game, but it's fair. It's difficult, but it's fair, and that's all you can ask for from a video game, right? It doesn't cheat you. I love it. I love everything about it. Like I say, it's probably my top 10 video games of all time. Dead Cells, amazing. One of my first games I picked up on the Switch. Really sort of got me into this roguelike genre. I'm going to pick up the Dead Cells Castlevania physical when that comes out, because I'd love to revisit this game. Again, I just kept playing and playing and playing this until I finished it. Once I finished it, I've never touched it since. Ganryu 2. Oh, I'm glad that this has rejigged my memory. I need to finish this. I really enjoyed it. It's almost like a Shinobi style game. 16-bit, beautiful visuals, but again, very difficult. I got to about level 5 of 7, I think. And something else came out. I put it down. I never picked it back up. I will need to start again from the start just to refamiliarise myself with the mechanics of this game. But it's a great game. And I hope to one day finish this one. So I'll definitely be revisiting Ganryu 2. Golf Story, didn't like it as much as everyone else did. I paid quite a bit for this because it was a limited run release. Not as much as I think it's worth now, though. I think it's still a very expensive game. I didn't finish it. I thought it was okay. The golf part of it was fine, but then you get these like frisbee levels, and I couldn't get the mechanics of the frisbee, and I didn't enjoy the game enough to learn them, so I put it down, never picked it back up. Similar with Hollow Knight. The amount of people I hear talk about this as if it's one of the greatest games ever made. It's a good game. It is one that I should revisit just to see if it was right game, wrong time. I put a lot of time into this one, and I'm disappointed I didn't finish it. I was like 40 hours deep, I'm sure I was. But, I don't know, I think I got stuck a couple of times. I think I got lost, and I was just doing a lot of backtracking, and it just got to that point where I didn't love the game enough to keep spending time getting nowhere. But definitely one I need to revisit, because like I say, I put too much time into it to not finish it. Horgy a cute 'em up, really. Cheap game that I picked up. It looks like a kiddie's game. It certainly doesn't play like one. It's very difficult. Yeah, the bosses on this are a challenge. Horizon Chase Turbo. Very, very fun game. Throwback to arcade racers. I think most people have played this at this point. I finished this. I played through World Tour mode. Had a great time with it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Would highly recommend it. Huntdown. What can I say about this? Starts as like a bit of a run and gun, but it's more sort of boss heavy. The bosses at the end of each one. Very fun game. I'd say most people seem to like it more than I did. It's very much an 80s throwback. There's a lot of sort of innuendos to old 80s action movies and that kind of thing. If that's your generation, I'm sure you'll have a great time with Huntdown. I did finish it. I did enjoy it. Immortals Phoenix Rising. You guys know I'm a massive fan of Greek mythology, so I bought this day one. I was one of the idiots that paid full price for this game. Like most Ubisoft games, it was about half price within about a month. I should have waited, but I really enjoyed it. It's like a mythological Breath of the Wild, which, I mean, to me, it was as good as that sounds, right? It's not as good as Breath of the Wild, but I like the Greek mythology theme running throughout it. And I definitely recommend this one these days because it's super cheap and there's a lot of value for your money there. Klonoa, as you can see, I've not opened it yet. Never played a Klonoa game. I picked this one up because I intend to put that right one day. Did not get on with this at all. Heard a lot of good things about Little Nightmares. I don't know if I'd be better off playing this on a different system. I found the depth perception quite difficult on the Nintendo Switch because obviously it takes a graphical hit. As you're playing through it, I didn't know what was in front, what was behind, and I kept dying because I couldn't quite get the depth perception right. Might be one that's better off on a PlayStation as opposed to Nintendo Switch. Luigi's Mansion, never really put much time into it. I know I need to. Mario Kart, again, it was one of the early releases, right? It was on the Wii U. I put loads of time into this when it first came out. I was actually working my way through trying to get gold on all the tracks. I got really far. I got very competent at this game. Early on, my Nintendo Switch broke. I sent it back to Nintendo. They sent it back fixed, but all my data had been erased. So all my sort of gold trophies and everything I had on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe were removed. I just never had it in me to start again. 3D All-Stars, I don't like the way Nintendo released this, telling everyone it was only going to be a limited thing and it's now 70 quid or whatever it is, ridiculous. I bought this fully intending to play through Mario Sunshine because it was the one game on here that I'd never really put much time into. I put a lot of time into it, I didn't finish it. That game is infuriating. The less said about that, the better for me. Mario Odyssey. What can I say about it? It's a good game. I don't think I loved it as much as everyone else did. Everyone was talking about 10 out of 10. I just thought it was a good game, not a great game. Mega Man X Collection. I think this is another one that I picked up in New York. Mega Man 11, not for me. Too easy. Mega Man games need to be a challenge. This is everything that's wrong with modern gaming, in my opinion. You get far too many power-ups. You get to that point where you can barely die by the end of it. It was no challenge whatsoever. I played through the game. Yes, you can probably make it, put in harder difficulty settings, but if you're going to make it easy for me, I'm going to play the game easy. And yeah, not a Mega Man game for me. Mega Man games should pack a punch. Love this. I cannot sing the praises about Monster Boy enough. Instantly, I keep telling you, I picked up a couple of games when I was in New York. This was before I had a YouTube channel. I played this while I was in New York. I think I finished this whilst I was in New York. Have such a great time with this one. Visually fantastic. Like an action platformer with a lot of Metroidvania elements. If you haven't played this, find it, play it. It's brilliant. Moonlighter, heard a lot of good things about this. Picked it up, put a few hours into it, enjoyed it, but not enough to finish it. Wow. NBA 2K Playgrounds, I think I bought this early in the life cycle where there wasn't many cheap games. It's decent, it's a bit of a mobile game and it wants you to do a lot of microtransactions, so it kind of lost me a bit. Ninja Saviors, love it. I would love to have the original on the Super Nintendo, but it's so expensive. This will do. I've only played through this, I think, twice. I get different characters. It comes with a poster. Brilliant game. If you haven't got this, I think you should get it. It's a beat 'em up. But there's lots of replayability to it. You're basically Ninja Cyborgs. I mean, what more do you need to know? I will be replaying this one. Ori. Man, I've spoken about the Ori series so many times, right? It's one of my favourite franchises ever made. The second one is the better game, but I'd advise playing both of them. Just a beautiful experience. Beautiful is the word when it comes to these two games. And again, if you haven't played them, pick them up, play them. They're really cheap on like the Xbox, I think. Owlboy, finished that this year. Beautifully visual-wise, really nice, as I say. Modern retro aesthetic. I felt like it was a little bit unfinished. I felt it lacked a bit of polish. There were certain elements of it I didn't enjoy. I'd probably give it like a 6.5 out of 10, but I feel like it could have been an 8 had they just put a little bit more into it. I was happy to have finished it. Pocky and Rocky, need to put more time into this one. Another one that's very expensive on the Super Nintendo. A really fun game. It's basically like a shooter at ground level. Very fun, very nice remaster, really nice visuals. I definitely intend to pick this one back up and hopefully play through it. But like most games from that era, it's not easy. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. This was a gift kindly donated to me by the channel. I haven't had an amazing relationship with Pokemon games throughout the years. I finished the one on the Game Boy. This is okay. This is probably one I'll let Little Man play when he's old enough and let him experience those early Pokemon games through Let's Go Eevee. Right, last pile. Rayman Legends, fantastic game. I played it on the Xbox 360 a little bit. I never finished it. I intend to do that on the Nintendo Switch. It was very cheap. Rhyme, played through it this year. It's got its detractors. It's not a flawless game in terms of its performance. It's probably not the best way to play it on the Switch, but I did finish it. I did enjoy it. It's a very emotive storyline. Just expect bugs, poor frame rate, and as I say, it's probably not the best platform to play it on. Shaq Fu, as you can see, it's still sealed. This, again, I bought really early on in the life cycle. Someone was selling this on a Facebook group for like £13 posted at that time. You don't ask questions, you just buy a Switch game when it was that cheap. I've got the Super Nintendo version and I've never played that. It's famously terrible. Apparently this one's a bit better. I'll probably play it one day for a joke. Shovel Knight, really enjoyed it. I went into this one having never played it on the Wii U or any other system. Played through it. Fantastic platformer. If you haven't played it, definitely recommend it. And that one comes with all the DLC and everything as well. It was on offer at Smith Toys. I think it was 25 quid. Shinamura EX, a shmup, a difficult one, but visually very, very beautiful. Slightly different than most shmups. It's like the element of time, so you kind of have to get time power-ups. The way you die on this is by running out of time, effectively. But a beautiful game, one I intend to return to, especially now I'm talking about it. That's the beauty of doing these videos. It's jogged my memory, right? So I might have to play that one again soon. SteamWorld Dig 2, fantastic game. Very cheap, definitely pick this one up. I pretty much played this non-stop until I finished it. It gives me sort of Mario 2 vibes, you know, those levels where you're digging down through the sand. Hence the name SteamWorld Dig 2. SteamWorld, all the games are very different. Some are first-person shooters, some are whatever. And say this one is like a platformer where you do a lot of digging. Not the longest game in the world, very cheap. Highly recommend. Street Fighter 2 30th Anniversary Collection. I own this on the PlayStation 4 as well. I mean, I'm a big Street Fighter fan, so I mean I couldn't not own it. Just a fantastic collection of video games. This was an early release. Being a Street Fighter fan, I felt like I needed to buy it. It's basically Street Fighter 2 with upgraded visuals, somewhat polarising because some people prefer the older visuals. I had a bit of fun with this one. I played it online when it first came out. Shredder's Revenge. Again, I've said I'm not a massive fan of beat-em-ups. I heard good things about this. Visually, it's very nice. I've only put a couple of hours into it, just playing it with Little Man. I've not really sat down and played it just myself and really got my teeth into it. It's just something I threw on for half an hour just to pass a bit of time with Little Man. Survivalists, I watched a review on this. They said positive things. I put it in, didn't enjoy it. It's not been back in since. Trials Rising, fantastic game. And for the price point, definitely pick this one up. So much fun. There's so much content here. Just a lot of playability on this. And it was really cheap, so I'm assuming it still is. Valfaris, another one that I'm very proud to have finished. Another very difficult game. It's got that kind of old aesthetic to it, like sort of 16-bit era. Very macabre, very sort of rock and roll, you know. Great soundtrack, really fits the theme of the game. Expected challenge, but it's rewarding, and yeah, I was very happy and proud of myself when I got this one beat because it was not easy. Breath of the Wild, what can I say? For me, one of the greatest games ever made. Whilst I would say that the Tears of the Kingdom is a better game if you put the two side by side, I'd put this one higher on my ranking because it was the first one. This was like, oh my gosh, what a world. I can go where I want, I can climb what I want, I can do what I want. It was the first game I really played on the Nintendo Switch. It sort of set off my love affair with the system. This will always be on my favourite games of all time list. Yeah, it's always going to have a very, very high place ranking in terms of my favourite video games ever. Just a masterpiece. And last one is Link's Awakening. What can I say? Again, it's one of them ones that I think everyone seemed to love more than me. I'd never finished this on the Game Boy, so I was eager to pick it up. A lot of backtracking. The best thing I can say about this is it's very good. It's very well made. I enjoyed the visuals of it, even though they were quite polarising, but I was happy when it was done. The last few hours, I'd had enough. So that probably says it all for me about this game, but I appreciate why people like it. That's it. Okay, that was my Nintendo Switch collection in its entirety. Let me know if you enjoyed this one by hitting that thumbs up, and let me know if there's any specific collection that you would like to see me take a deep dive into next. I am currently working on a video that's going to be going live for Patreon members over on Ghetto Gang very shortly. Also, let me know if there's any games that you've seen on this video that have inspired you to pick up, maybe games that you weren't aware of, and what you think about the Nintendo Switch 6 years into its lifespan. As always, play your games, keep it retro. In a bit.
Retro Ghetto.
Lock into the retro ghetto.